This week on Bad Things in History, nobody dies. We promise. Just kidding, Isaac Newton had a guy killed, and we're here with all the juicy details. Stick around and learn about a man willing and able to destroy lives and weaken national currencies for selfish gain, until one of the greatest minds in Western history took him down. Ever heard of a grifter? A grifter is a con artist, someone who convinces people to willingly part with their money, using fraud. Most of our detailed knowledge of how they operate comes from written accounts in Europe and the United States starting in the 17th century. But let's be real. Shady people have been parting victims from their belongings forever. Most grifters use what are known as confidence tricks to pull this off. First, they gain the trust of their victims, or marks, in a variety of ways. For instance, he may identify a victim in distress and express compassion in order to become a trusted friend or confidant. Or he might make up stories to convince the mark he has abilities that he doesn't, like being a financial investment expert. In some cases, an accomplice known as a shill might be used to help perpetrate the fraud. This can be a short con lasting minutes, or a long con requiring a lot of time and effort. This is one of those rare careers open to anyone with the right moral flexibility and determination, but the retirement plan can leave something to be desired. Like Isaac Newton giving all he's got to see you hang, which was the fate of William Chaloner. He was born in 1650 to a poor family in Warwickshire, England, near where Shakespeare was born. But he didn't remain poor for long. He was quite talented even by grifter standards. And, like a lot of gifted kids, his parents found him difficult to control as a child. So he was given as an apprentice to a nail maker in Birmingham. But this turned everything around for him, because the other thing Birmingham produced was coins. And Chaloner became really good at making the silver Birmingham groats, which were a significant part of England's money supply. During the 1680s, the Craftsmen's Guild prevented him from finding legitimate work using his skills, but this didn't stop him. He made tin watches and sold them on the street. But his watches also contained dildos. Yes, that's right. Chaloner made a living by selling watches that contained sex toys. In London, in the 1600s. But not for long. Soon after his arrival, he was making lots of money by, well, making money. Specifically, counterfeiting coins. He was renowned for the quality of his work and had a lot of financial success, so he bought a large house in a London suburb for his family. Having convinced most of those around him that he was a respectable gentleman, he offered his services to the Royal Mint. He did this by publishing a pamphlet describing a solution to counterfeiting issues with currency. By the 1690s, counterfeit coins made up almost 10% of those in circulation, so it was a pressing issue. Some of the items Chaloner suggested in his pamphlet were to restrict access to the tools needed to make coins and use deeper grooves on the edge of the coins. He also suggested some changes to monetary policy to deal with other issues. Luck appeared to be on his side, as Charles Mordaunt, who used to be the Lord of the Treasury until falling out of favor with the king, wanted a chance to attack a rival that he blamed for his fall from grace. Mordaunt arranged for Chaloner to address a council that advised the king, and to discuss issues about corrupt practices with them. The good fortune didn't continue for long, because his presentation convinced the Royal Mint to start their own investigations, and Chaloner wasn't included in the effort. In 1693, he saw another opportunity to exploit. The government was offering a reward for information about Jacobite activities and plots. Jacobitism supported restoring the House of Stuart to the English throne in opposition to the current king. Chaloner paid 4 Jacobites to print a new edition of a declaration from the last Catholic king of England, James II. Then he invited them to dinner and entertained them for a while. But it was a setup. He arranged for them to be arrested in possession of the very materials he had paid for them to print. Clearly, the entire situation was engineered so that the government would reward Chaloner, which they did, to the tune of £1,000. He continued to work the Jacobite angle for a couple of years, attempting to spy on people, then turn them over to the government. Most of the prosecutions failed. Eventually, Chaloner tried to get Thomas Coppinger, a fellow counterfeiter, to write some treasonous materials which could then be given to Jacobites to print. Essentially, Chaloner was trying to run his previous scam again. The plan fell apart when, in May 1694, Coppinger told authorities about Chaloner's coining operations. Chaloner was sent to prison. He then testified against Coppinger, who was executed in February of 1695. After failing to secure a future with the Royal Mint, and after nearly losing his freedom permanently with the Jacobite scam, he was looking for the next opportunity. And he was a multitasker. In 1694, the Bank of England was established. The bank was created because of the dire state of England's finances, which were partially in disarray due to large counterfeiting operations. As part of the charter, the bank was able to produce banknotes which served as valid currency. Chaloner wasted no time exploiting this opportunity. New 100-pound banknotes were produced by the Bank of England in June of 1695. To try and make them difficult to counterfeit, they were printed on special marbled paper. So Chaloner had a large amount of this special paper delivered to his home and got busy making counterfeit banknotes. The first forged banknote was detected in August 1695. The paper used to make the note was traced to a printer who quickly informed authorities about Chaloner. Chaloner then turned King's evidence and surrendered the paper he used to make banknotes. In a massive legal loophole, forging banknotes was not considered a felony until 1697. So rather than face prison time, he was thanked for his efforts by the Bank of England. They gave him a 200-pound reward, and Chaloner kept all of his profits from the counterfeiting scheme. He could have stopped while he was ahead, but he got greedy and continued the grift. By 1696, he was being held in prison on suspicion of a felony. The Royal Mint investigation had collected details from several criminals who had incriminated Chaloner, and the legal system at the time didn't presume innocence until guilt was proven. In January 1696, Chaloner gave details concerning a conspiracy within the Royal Mint. He was released from prison, but testified later that year to a committee where he named other counterfeiters, presumably to make sure he continued to avoid confinement. In 1698, Chaloner was involved in a different scheme. He engraved a plate to make counterfeit lottery tickets. Another petty criminal eventually provided this information to the authorities, more specifically to an individual that Chaloner had tried to blackmail in 1697. In October 1698, a warrant was issued for Chaloner's arrest, and he was again imprisoned. In 1699, William Chaloner's uncanny luck started to run out, because that was when Isaac Newton became the master of the mint. Most people who occupied this position traditionally did nothing but collect their pay. It was essentially a political appointment. But Newton took his job seriously. And the Isaac Newton known for Newtonian physics and calculus was on a personal mission to convict Chaloner with a case that couldn't be challenged. Newton collected statements from a network of spies and informants and made sure to gather details from Chaloner's former associates. Additionally, the judge that heard the case was known for preferring the death penalty. And since there was no presumption of innocence, Chaloner had to provide his own defense without knowing anything about the evidence Newton would present. The actual charges against Chaloner were 2 counts of treason. One count was for counterfeiting French coins in 1692, and another for counterfeiting English coins in 1698. William Chaloner, while awaiting trial, tried to convince everyone that he had gone crazy, but Newton didn't fall for the ploy, so Chaloner instead resorted to insulting everyone in the court. The jury in turn sentenced him to death. While awaiting execution, Chaloner wrote letters trying to appeal to anybody who could save him. Their tone ranged from aggressive to begging and finally rambling. He actually wrote a letter to Isaac Newton that can still be read today. "Oh dear sir, do this merciful deed. Oh, my offending you has brought this upon me. Oh, for God's sake, if not mine, keep me from being murdered, oh dear sir. Nobody can save me but you. Oh God, my God, I shall be murdered unless you save me. Oh, I hope God will move your heart with mercy, pity to do this thing for me. I am your near murdered humble servant." None of the letters received replies, and he was executed by hanging on March 22nd, 1699. It was not a quick death. He twitched and kicked for several minutes, performing what was known as the hangman's dance. With his obvious talents, William Chaloner could have made an exceptional living without breaking the law at all. But even with his tendency to engage in new schemes, he could have gotten away with it entirely if he would have stopped at some point. If he had not counterfeited French coins, and if he had stopped counterfeiting British coins in 1697, he might have gotten away with everything. He rose up from poverty and obscurity to wealth and a little bit of prestige, ultimately to meet an untimely end when his schemes caught up with him. You have to wonder if he was brilliant, lucky, or both, at least until that luck ran out. Throughout history, some brilliant men die in the name of peace, some in the name of war, some in the name of conquest, nationalism, pride, or love. William Chaloner lived and died by his own greed and selfishness, ultimately hanging by the neck and earning himself a place in the annals of bad things in history. Was the death penalty too much? William Chaloner was just a grift artist, right? But think about it. He blackmailed people, he used and abused other people so much so that people were willing to testify against him. Would you have done better in his shoes, growing up out of obscurity with this latent talent in a system that denied you the opportunity to use it because of your lack of prestigious birth? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Bad Things in History.